Ella me da tiempo para disfrutar. Centella, Centella.
Good evening and welcome back to the podcast Compels You, the show in which a mysterious AI mastermind dictates a cursed category of movies. What is a cursed category, you ask? Well, a cursed category consists of two requirements for a movie, and the curse part is that we must then race against the clock to find two movies that meet both requirements, watch them, and review them with you. If we don't do that, something bad happens. Uh-oh. We don't know what that something is, but we've seen enough scary movies that we don't want to find out. I'm Stacy, and horror movies are life. I'm here tonight with my co-host Bill. Bill, do you agree that horror movies are life?
Yeah, I think I can agree with that statement.
Speaking of horror movies, have you seen anything good lately?
I'd like to start this discussion, but I think I might hand it back to you because I know how incredibly excited you have been about a very particular movie that has come out. So, I'm going to pass the ball right back to you, Stacy.
I might disappoint you for a little while because this is part two of movies I streamed while traveling. Last episode, I talked about the first couple of these, which were movies I actually happened to like. I think this segment, though, could be called Super Silly Streams. Trim Season, a new straight to streaming release about a group of young folks desperate for cash who hope to earn some as seasonal workers trimming the devil's lettuce, which I guess has to happen before you could get your party on with it or your licensed medical treatment party, whatever the case may be. Anyway, this group of youngsters jump in a stranger's van and travel up a mountain through a veritable forest of red flags. It's simply amazing they don't actually drive straight into one of the gaping plot holes and explode Ford Pinto style in a Hollywood fireball. This is a very silly movie. Like, I'm pretty sure intentionally kind of silly. And I can't say that I recommend it unless you just want to make fun of a very silly movie, which is what I did throughout the entire thing. Props to them for being gender inclusive, though. There's a non binary character. That was nice.
I watched about a half hour of this and I gave up. Not that it was like bad, it
Fair.
just wasn't grabbing me yet. So you said you
Mm,
don't recommend it necessarily.
it only gets worse. Like,
Okay.
I thought the buildup was actually okay,
Uh-huh.
although I think people do some unreasonably, like, unbelievable, dangerous things.
Sure.
That could just be me, though. But yeah, it does get very silly.
Okay.
Next, I watched The Haunting, 1999. This is, have
Haunting.
you seen this?
That's such a generic title. I'm trying to
I
remember
know.
what The Haunting is.
I'm going to connect the dots for you,
Yeah,
though.
please connect the dots. I'm going to Google it while you're doing that.
This is a weird modern day, at the time, adaptation of the lovely 1963 movie The Haunting, which was itself an adaptation of the novel The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson.
Oh, I know this one. Owen Wilson's in this. Oh, yes. I saw this in the movie theater when I was a teenager. Yes.
Yes, this movie deviates substantially from the book and from the original movie that it directly adapted, but not like in the way that the Flanagan series does. Like, it actually tells a version of the Shirley Jackson story, which doesn't really appear in the Netflix series, albeit the plot is significantly altered. So, what I have to say about that is like the 1963 movie, it's very subtle and very psychological, very atmospheric, like fairly true to the book and like the tone of the book and the reason that people find the book scary, which is not like outright scares and gore. There's none of that. It's all very subtle. This adaptation feels a lot like a Disney haunted mansion ride
Yes.
version of Hill House with lots and lots of very cartoony haunted house effects. The third act is extremely action packed, and it's mainly the house and its furnishings doing most of the action, which if you enjoy that, it's fun, right? I thought it was kind of fun, but it does feel like a children's movie that is also very much not for children. So my only other criticism was really like, I think this movie insists way too hard on like the laborious, detailed backstory that they invented for Hill House, which is just totally not like really in line with the book or the other adaptation. But what they really tried to do is to make it all make sense, which is kind of the opposite of what the book and the old movie do, right? They leave a lot of ambiguity. And even the Flanagan series, like for the most part, did not feel the need to inject like so much backstory.
Mhm.
Leave most of that to the imagination. That's way scarier. Also, get this. You said the movie has Owen Wilson in it. It's also
Uh-huh.
got Liam Neeson. Did you remember
Yes.
that?
Oh, I do. And Catherine
And Catherine
Zeta-Jones.
Zeta-Jones.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it was a good cast, I gotta say.
Lily Taylor is also famous, who played Nell.
Right.
I do recommend this one if you want to see a Hill House meets Monster House concept. Have you seen that one?
No, I have
Oh, you
not.
got to see it.
I'm putting it on the list.
It's another good cartoon.
This movie got nominated for 5 Golden Raspberry Awards. It did not win any, but
Isn't that
it was
amazing?
nominated for 5.
I looked at a list of all the like negative awards that it was
Yeah,
nominated
it
for.
won a Stinker Award, which I didn't even know there was a Stinker Award.
Also, maybe this is a spoiler, but I mean, if you just want to see Owen Wilson die a hilarious sudden death,
Wow.
that probably was too much of a spoiler.
Yeah, I mean, it's from 1999. Come on.
Right. I think 25 years should be our
Yes.
cutoff.
I mean, I saw this in the theater. It was a really great theater movie when I was a teenager, but
Yeah.
I remember there being a very big jump scare involving like a fireplace or something. There was something
Uh-huh.
like something flies out of a fireplace or something. It scared the crap out of me.
There's a lot to do with the fireplace. Yeah.
Yes. And this movie, I think, was also heavily parodied in Scary Movie 2, if I'm not mistaken. It's basically the whole
Oh,
plot of Scary Movie 2, because it's like a haunted house movie, and
I
so
gotta
much
go
of it
back
is
and
premise.
watch that because I
Yeah.
didn't know. I hadn't seen it.
Yeah. The first 2 Scary movies are
They're all right.
watchable. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it goes pretty downhill after that.
When I saw the first one, I was really young and I thought it was like an amazing concept. Though. And this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to make like parody movies.
Sure, sure. Then they made a million of them, and you're like, oh,
I
come on.
know. Yeah, it's old. Maybe it'll come back around again.
Sure.
The next movie I watched was The Final Wish 2018, starring Lin Shaye. The Final Wish was surprisingly released in theaters, but it flew under my radar. But, no regrets about that. The Final Wish is another very silly movie. A cursed item grants monkey paw type wishes, that kind of story. And it's only possibly worth watching for Lin Shaye's performance. And it's kind of silly just to see her acting side by side with so much bad acting. The acting
Right.
is so bad. Like the protagonist is terrible. It's just almost unwatchable, but there are a few fun scenes with her where she really gets unhinged, and I'm glad that I got to see that just because I like her. Overall, can't recommend it unless, you feel like me about that or you just want to MST3K it with some friends. Lastly, this does not really fit into the silly category, but I was excited to learn that the director of tonight's movie made another movie in the same universe called Sister Death, Hermana Muerte in Spanish. It's another scary nun movie.
It's a prequel, I believe, right?
It's on Netflix. Yeah, it has an interesting take on the vengeful ghost trope, but it unfortunately raises more questions than it answers. It was kind of underwhelming. I just always find like 9 times out of 10 with a scary nun movie, I get disappointed.
Yeah. They have a bad track record.
The weird thing about this being a prequel is kind of like, is it? I mean, it definitely is supposed to be because like the last scene segs right into this other
Sure.
movie, but it doesn't give any backstory to anything that's like really important to the movie, like the evil thing.
Did you watch it before or after tonight's movie?
I watched it after and before because I've seen tonight's movie
Oh,
lots
you
of
have. Okay.
times.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
yeah, so I just watched this one like last week or something.
Gotcha.
So, about new movies, I was prevented once again by way of natural disaster from seeing a movie in a theater. So, I did not catch A Quiet Place Day 1 in theater as planned, and I won't be able to see it till it's on streaming. Oh well, I'm fine with that. Okay, I feel like I buried the lead here, but finally, I saw Longlegs, which I've been anticipating
Yay!
since like the very whispers of it had been announced. So I fall squarely on the side of viewers who liked the movie and squarely not on the side of, wah, this movie was advertised as the scariest film of the decade, and it's definitely not that. Wah. Have you seen these people?
I have. This movie was so hyped. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
it can't please everyone when it has that much hype.
But don't people know that? Do they really have to be so complainy?
I mean, they're gonna be, but
So much good about this movie. I don't want to give anything away. It has a fun mystery. It's got a really good atmosphere of dread. The
mhm.
acting is good. It has what I think of as like full-bodied character development, especially with Micah Monroe's character, and some
Yes.
unexpected comic relief
Hmm.
that I thought was actually funny. So that's always a plus. It's beautifully shot. The sound
Yes.
is incredible. And we did an episode on The Black Coat's Daughter from the same writer director, and it's about 10 years old now. So, like looking back on the both of those movies, I feel like Longlegs shows us the true Oz Perkins. Like this is the kind of movie he can make when he truly, like, first of all, workshops the plot holes out of the story. And secondly, most importantly, perhaps, is not constrained by budget.
Yes. Although this had a pretty small budget though, I think. I think it was like 10 million. Does that sound right?
That's not too bad
I
for
mean, although you have some
indie
big
horror.
names though. I mean, that must have all gone to like the two stars, I imagine.
Yeah, do you feel like they volunteered their time or nah?
Yeah, I don't know, but I think I read it was like 10 million. It made its money back in like a day or two or something like that.
I forget what the budget for Black Coat's Daughter was, but I feel like there were some limitations.
Yes, there definitely were.
The other fun thing, and surely you noticed this, but I'll stop calling you Shirley. There's like lots of small references to many other horror movies in it.
Oh, for sure.
And it's so fun to collect them all like
I
Pokemon.
know. It wasn't like showy in my mind. It was like done really
Right.
well. Like
Very subtle.
subtle, yes.
Yeah. I think it's also best enjoyed in the theater. So if you have the chance to go out and see it by the time this comes out, I don't know if that will be possible. I would definitely do it. Tomorrow, I'm seeing Voyage of the Rock Aliens, 1984 sci-fi comedy that has both a guitar-shaped spaceship as well as a musical performance by Jermaine Jackson.
Oh, wow.
I guess it's horror adjacent. It's part of a horror movie series at the Alamo Draft House.
Cool. That sounds
And
awesome.
then I'm traveling again, so there'll be more streaming in our near future. So send me any streaming recommendations, especially like your Shutter deep cuts. I feel like I don't watch enough Shutter. I've been a financial backer for years, and by that I mean I've been subscribing for years without asking for anything in return. So should probably watch some movies. And in August, I'll complete my tour at Houston Horror Film Fest. I'm too cheap to be a vendor, but what I can do is wear one of my one of a kind official The Podcast Compels You t-shirt, and I will have most excellent swag to give away. So if you want to meet probably the least famous, least important person at Houston Horror Film Fest, come on out and find me. I dare you. No, wait, I don't. That's a terrible idea. Don't actually do that. In fact, I'm pretty sure we're going to air this episode too late for that. So, what about you, Bill? You said you'd seen some things.
I haven't seen a lot of horror, although I did find a new, I don't know if you'd call it a subgenre. I'm going to call it a subgenre that scares the crap out of me, and that is space.
Oh, space is fucking scary.
Holy shit, we're watching this show, my wife and I. It's an Apple TV show, and it's not a horror show at all. It's called For All Mankind. And there's like people in space that are like getting sent out into the blackness of space and like they can't get them. Stuff like that freaks the hell out of me. Just think
Yeah,
you're just floating in space and you're going to die. But anyway, that's my whole new subgenre that just scares the crap out of me. So I'd like to find some actual horror movies that incorporate space.
I'm gonna dig up some recs for you. And also,
Yes.
they just finished filming a new Alien TV show, like
Oh,
spin-off
cool.
from the movies. So you
What's
might
that going
like
to be
that.
on? Do you know?
FX? I don't
Yeah.
know.
That
Get
seems like an
fact check me.
FX thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I read a lot about all the movies and I get things mixed up.
Other than that, no, I did see Longlegs. I will say my only thing about Longlegs, just to go back to it, going into it as a horror movie, I found it a little underwhelming. But if you had sold it as a thriller.
Thriller, right?
It,
Yeah.
it rides the line. It's such a good
It
thriller. Like
definitely has
they
the
don't make these
beats of a
movies anymore.
thriller. Yeah.
That whole genre, I think, has like died in general. The
That
thriller.
genre doesn't get people to the movie theater.
I
What
know.
does
It's
is
so
horror.
sad.
So,
I know. And Micah Monroe, I could barely recognize as Micah
right?
Monroe, which is like the best thing I could possibly say about an actor or actress,
Yes,
because
same.
like she reminded me of a couple of other kind of actresses from like the 90s that played those similar roles, but like did it so well. So anyway, I will just say that because we might do Longlegs as an episode coming up. So I
Yeah.
don't want
I'm
to
gonna
reveal too
save
much of my
all my
opinion.
stuff I really want to say about everything you just said
Just hold
because
it
I
in.
agree with you. Like it's possible the AI mastermind will take notice of this movie and create a situation under which we must broadcast about it.
I hope it's listening. So this week's film is the first of our two selections that fit into our Fuck the Patriarchy and board games categories. And the term patriarchy literally translates to the rule of the father. And the films we chose feature strong female protagonists who drive the narrative. Our evil AI chatbot insisted that we stay somewhat close to our last episode's Ouija Origin of Evil theme, so we also included board games in our criteria. Tonight's film is the 2017 Spanish supernatural horror film Veronica, or how do you say it, Stacy?
Veronica.
Oh, so much better. Directed and co-written by Paco Plaza, with additional writing by Fernando Navarro, the film stars Sandra Escacina as the titular character, Claudia Placer, Bruna Gonzalez, and Ivan Chavero as her siblings, and Anna Torrent as Veronica's mother. Paco Plaza is known for directing other notable horror films, including Wreck from 2007 and its sequel, Wreck Squared from 2009, which I thought was a very unusual sequel name. I've not seen that one, but have you seen the original Wreck?
I haven't. Somebody recommended it to me only recently, and I was surprised that I hadn't heard of it.
It's a really good film. My roommate in college actually had me watch it, and I was super blown away by it. Again, it's another Spanish language film, of course. Very uniquely shot, very unique kind of narrative device in that one as well. So I
Started
definitely
like about
recommend it.
the same time as this movie around about, and then like they made more and more,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I think
It
that's about
has
right.
kind of like a cult following now, it seems like.
Yeah, and they remade it, an American version or an English language version, which I didn't even bother to see because the original is just so good. I don't want to taint it. But anyway, this film marks the debut of Sandra Escacina, as well as the actors playing her siblings, while Anna Torrent, who plays her mother, brings a seasoned presence with a filmography dating back to the late 60s, boasting over 60 TV and film credits. And I just want to say at the top of this, I am blown away that this was basically like the first role for all of these kids in this movie because my
Right?
God,
I'm a little worried what they did to those kids to get them to react like that.
seriously, hats off to them.
Yeah.
Like many horror movies, Veronica is loosely based on true events and draws inspiration from the mysterious death of Gutierrez Lazaro after using a Ouija board. The story even spawned a prequel called Sister Death that Stacy had discussed earlier, which was also released on Netflix. So, Stacy, do you have any content warnings besides our normal ones?
Yes. As I mentioned, I've seen this movie many times, mostly because I saw it once and then I wanted to share it with other people. So I would watch it with other people. It has a little bit of blood, a little bit of body horror, an unsuccessful suicide attempt. The main like pervasive thing is there's some child neglect as well as some parentification of a teenager through that same neglect. There's also lots of scary and intense scenes involving children since the main character is a young teenager and she has younger siblings. There's one sequence in which graphic cannibalism is depicted, if that's a thing for you. This movie does not depict any sexual assault, but there are theories that sexual abuse is implied and even theories that the whole thing could be a metaphor for sexual abuse. So I don't think that we should be held responsible for metaphors, though, right, Bill?
I agree.
It's a whole other can of worms,
Yep.
if you will. I love how I used a metaphor to explain our position on metaphors.
Mind
Sorry, that
blown.
just blew my mind for a second, right? Yeah. As always, we recommend that you check doesthedogdie.com if you have any specific triggers, especially before watching the movie or listening to us spoil the plot, which happens from the music onward.
You have already seen it, obviously, and you've had other people see it for your recommendation. So I'm going to say you probably have a somewhat favorable view of this movie. I have never seen this, never heard of it, don't know anything about it. So I do have my three things, and I failed miserably at them.
Oh, how
So
fun.
I will say them anyway because just for shits and giggles. So the first one was I expected to see an uber religious grandparent.
Hmm.
Number two, a dismembered limb. And number three, an animal that can sense paranormal happenings. I don't think there was a single animal in this movie, to be honest.
Only in still pictures, not in not moving.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. I'll mention
Yeah.
it later. But you know what? I think you were really close with two of those.
Well, the dismembered limb, maybe. That one of
Yeah,
them?
really, really close.
Kind of close, yeah. And the uber religious grandparent, that's open to interpretation. But
Sure. I mean, you could project that onto another character who's not really a
sure.
grandmother. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's just it's hard going into some of these. It's hard to put some of these together, especially after last week's, which kind of had a similar impetus for the film. So
I'm fine with that. You know what? Give me the similar impetus like
yeah.
all the time, all week long. I'll watch it. I'll pay money for it.
Fair enough. I feel like at this point, I do need to say that we are going to do a slight diversion from our normal structure of our episode. Normally, I would be doing the dark fact of the day here. However, my dark fact of the day may contain some minor spoilers. So instead of that, we are going to go straight to our intermission. And when we return, you'll be getting a dark fact of the day as well as our spoilerific discussion of Veronica. So stick around.
Please don't panic.
All right, and we are back, and now I'm going to deliver our dark fact of the day.
Dark fact.
So, for today's dark fact, I want to share the true story behind tonight's film, the tragic tale of 18-year-old Estefania Gutierrez Lazaro. Like in the movie, she participated in a Ouija board session at her school, attempting to communicate with her friend's deceased boyfriend. Witnesses reported seeing smoke rise from Estefania's mouth and nose during this session. In the following months, Estefania began experiencing severe seizures and hallucinations, often falling into rages and even barking at others. She frequently told her parents that she saw evil shadows passing by her room at night. Despite numerous examinations by doctors, no physical or mental issues could be identified. Approximately 6 months after the Ouija session, Estefania was found dead in her bed, having suffered a cardiac arrest, which is very unusual, obviously, for someone of that age, especially with no previous medical history. The hauntings didn't end with her death. Her family reported hearing screams and laughter, and Estefania's belongings would mysteriously scatter across the floor. On one occasion, her photograph fell and burned while a nearby crucifix flipped over. Eventually, the family was forced to sell their house in an effort to rid themselves of the dark presence. So, Stacy, what do you think about that? How much of that do you think is well-intentioned relaying of facts versus, maybe some other explanations?
My logic brain is like, there's got to be a reason she had a cardiac arrest or,
Sure.
reason to explain other things that she was seeing that nobody else could see.
Mm-hmm.
But like the other part of my brain, like the reptile brain or whatever, just gave me goosebumps while you read the story.
Yeah.
So this is like the place that we find ourselves between with like horror and scary stories.
It's kind of fun being on that line, right? Like you have your science mind and your emotional mind.
Yeah. I think that maybe that's part of the fun.
Even in the actual story, I think they did bring in investigators and stuff, and even they concluded that there was some like paranormal stuff. So I don't want to ruin any. Well, I guess we're already in the spoiler section, but like even like in the movie, there were some actual like agents that came by who assessed everything and still determined that there was something else going on. So it wasn't just her family, it wasn't just like doctors. So in my mind, that lends a little more credence when there's a lot of people involved thinking that there might be something more to the story.
Also, like mental illness is genetic, and
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't want to have that thought, but I'm like, like the mom or someone else could easily also have whatever the affliction is. whatever it is.
Right. That was our dark fact of the day. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Stacy to walk us through the plot of Veronica.
I accept the call. The movie begins with a call, in fact, a call to emergency services. It's June 15th, 1991, 1:35 a.m., according to the title card. The audio call alternates like with shots of police cars with lights and sirens. And the caller is like a young woman who's very upset and unable to articulate exactly what the problem is, which is probably good because otherwise she would spoil the movie.
Mm-hmm.
She says, "He's inside." Later, she says, "He's here. We don't yet know who he is." One of the emergency personnel arriving is a detective, and we know this immediately because he looks deep in thought, first of all. Second of all, he's wearing a Columbo-style raincoat, so
Yes, it's a
you
giveaway.
know. Yeah, it's like a name badge in this industry. Another cop points out the correct building that they're supposed to arrive at, and we hear kids screaming and crying, and there's some kind of reuniting that's happening sort of off screen. We catch a glimpse of it in what I think is like the courtyard atrium area of the apartment building. The detective notices this is the right address, and then at that time we hear the old-fashioned dial tone. If you don't know what that is, as the caller disconnects from emergency services. So the detective enters the apartment, which I guess has no working lights at the moment because he's using a flashlight. Police radio says, "Calling all units, we have a 402 at 8 Gerardo Nunez Street." According to ChatGPT, a 402 is an abandoned refrigerator. At least it wasn't a 404, though. You know what a 404 is, Bill?
No, what?
That's when the police can't find the address. Get it? 404, not found.
Oh gosh, that was good.
Thanks. The detective and the other cops are looking around the apartment and are stepping through broken glass. The place is a mess. There's a whole bunch of junk on the floor all over, but out of all the stuff, did you notice the detective homes right in on the crucifix that's lying
Of
on the
course.
floor in the junk pile? Do
Yep.
you know why he actually notices that first rather than all the other items?
No.
It's because this tells us it's a demonic possession movie.
Oh, right.
Really?
Yes.
Yes. We got to know that now. It's important. We then get a title card explaining to us that in the early morning of June 15th, 1991, emergency services received a call from some neighborhood in Madrid. The reason for that title card is just in case we didn't understand anything else that had happened so far in the movie, or perhaps we arrived late at the theatrical release. Anyway, first 2 minutes summed up. The cops inside the place hear like bumping or knocking noises coming from one of the rooms at the end of the hall, and they approach it, shining their flashlights in that direction. They notice some bloody footprints going that way, not going the other way,
Hmm.
and some strange vocal sounds like some creepy laughter almost, but not quite. We get another title card then telling us that this story is based on the police report that the detective in the raincoat made as a result of this case. I added the raincoat. The officers approaching the closed door of the bedroom in question now have their guns drawn, and police radio informs them and us that there are 4 kids total, and 2 of them are still upstairs. Upstairs is where we are right now in the apartment. So put your guns away. There's kids
Yeah,
around.
right?
The officers open the door to the room and they step inside. Flashlight beams are like everywhere. We hear an inhuman noise along with some tortured screaming coming from somewhere in the room, and they all stop and face that direction, staring. And then, in a really fun transition, we cut to a girl in the next shot. We still hear the screaming as we see the girl's wide open, screaming mouth with braces. She's lying in bed, so it looks at first like she is screaming, but then she stretches, the scream sound fades, and oh, she wasn't screaming, she was yawning. Everything's okay. She's just a normal teenage girl waking up in the morning to the sound of a rooster alarm clock. So forget about all that other stuff you just saw. She sits up, and the title card tells us this was 3 days earlier. I love me a good tight timeline on a demonic possession story, don't you?
Absolutely. Yes,
Why
yes.
draw it out? Let's see everything happen in 3 days, you know?
The only problem is they didn't give us a day countdown. Well, I guess they gave us the dates throughout
We
the
got a
movie,
title
but
card each morning.
yeah, but I was
That's
kind
what we
of again
got.
hoping for the Donnie Darko like 2 more days.
Yes.
Like I want
No,
that.
I agree. Yeah. This was a little bit different vibe, I
Sure.
think.
Yeah.
They stuck kind of like with the typewritten police reporting kind of title cards, you know?
Yes. Hmm.
So that was a nice touch.
I agree.
The first thing that we see the teenage Veronica doing in her life is waking her siblings, opening curtains, doing laundry, and then she stops and looks at a girl in a neighboring apartment building across the way who is singing and dancing and doing like normal kid stuff. So the message here is loud and clear. Veronica wishes she could be a normal girl without all this parental responsibility of her siblings, which we don't yet know why she has all this. Her spectatorship of the neighbor is interrupted by something boiling over on the stove. Typical. The little sisters say that they have to bring photo negatives to school to shield their eyes so they can view the solar eclipse that is happening that day. So I wondered whether it was actually safe
Yeah.
to view the solar eclipse with negatives. So I asked Google. So here's the answer.
Okay.
And this was from some sciencey site. The answer is it is safe as long as, which is important,
Hmm.
it's black and white film that
Oh.
contains silver granules, which, by the way, they don't make anymore, except for very specialty purposes, you know. But
Hmm.
for all practical purposes, they don't make it anymore. You can't buy it
Sure.
in the stores. It must have no images on it, but it has to have been exposed and developed, which under normal circumstances, you wouldn't develop film that had no images on it.
No.
I don't know if you remember how this works.
Yeah.
So, PSA, not only are the chances nearly zero that you have this stuff lying around the house in 2024, as they stopped widely manufacturing film at all for cameras about 15 years ago, stuff with silver in it, sometime even before that. The internet wasn't in agreement over that. But also, you need two layers of this stuff, not
Yeah.
one. So they were, causing mass eye damage to all of those kids' eyes in this movie. Please don't go try it out and blame me for your eye damage. My point is, even in 1991, what are the chances that you would have exposed and developed black and white film with no images on it in your junk drawer?
Well, and she goes and runs and just grabs like a photo wallet of photos and just takes
Regular
the
photos with
negatives out of there.
images in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
doesn't jive at all.
Yeah.
So
They're
people
fucked.
just go
Yeah.
on Amazon, order the glasses,
Order the glasses.
do the
Yeah.
normal thing.
Just want to be really clear about that. Don't want to put any of our listeners in any kind of danger due to a solar eclipse, which isn't going to happen for a long time now. But anyway,
True.
Veronica hurries the kids to finish getting ready for school. And then she finds that crucifix lying on the floor for some reason. This is like out of time. Is this
Yeah.
just foreshadowing?
I think it's
Is she,
foreshadowing. Yeah.
is she actually cursed before the movie even starts? I mean, okay, right after that happens, the directorial credit displays. So I think like Paco Plaza must have been really proud of this shot. Like
Yeah.
maybe it's just his way of saying, oh, hello.
Yeah. I like that.
Then Veronica opens a bedroom door and oh my God, there's an adult, a sleeping full grown adult woman. And I'm so mad at her right now. Like, I'm like, there is a parent home. Why does Veronica have to do all the fucking mom shit?
I
I'm
know.
sure we'll find out later why that is so.
This is such a fucked up dynamic.
I know. It's painful to watch because we know so much more about what that does to kids now.
The thing with me is this mom, she's not like an alcoholic or anything that we know of. Like she's not
No,
your typical movie version of the neglectful parent. It's just she ends up being an
no.
overworked single mother, but not to ruin
Yeah,
anything. But anyway,
that doesn't ruin anything. I mean,
nah, probably not. We're in spoilers anyway.
I did spend some time being mad at her when I first saw this for the
Yeah,
first
I
time.
think you're supposed to feel that way.
Yeah. Or maybe even think like something worse is going on than what's actually going on because we don't know why she's in bed right now.
Maybe she
But
has cancer or some other
yeah,
ailment that keeps her bedridden. Yeah.
I think she explains that she was working late till 2 in the morning, so she's
Hmm.
exhausted. So Veronica is looking around for some photos for the negatives. Then she finds a picture of a man with a giant circular something. Is that a pizza?
Yep, it looked like a pizza.
Okay. It's a big ass pizza.
Yeah, for sure.
I couldn't exactly tell.
Yeah.
Anyway, she snags that photo and the negatives, and then the movie title card displays. And we get a fabulous Spanish rock track as Veronica does a slow-mo walk to school with the kids. But it's that kind of 90s slow-mo that isn't actually super slow.
Right.
It's like these are the cool kids. That it's that kind of slow-mo. You know what I'm talking about? Like
Yeah,
I
I
imagine
totally
it
know what you
like
mean.
in The Craft or something.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. I know which scene you're talking about in The Craft too. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm
Do
not
you know the
making
name of
this
that
up,
band?
right?
No, not at all.
Uh, is it, okay, I'm just gonna guess because I don't know. Is it Soda
Sure.
Stereo?
It's Heroes del Silencio.
Oh, okay.
All of the non-instrumental music in this film is that band, and it's also, I think she wears the shirt like throughout the movie, like at nighttime and stuff. So
Oh, good
they
observation.
were very big
Yeah,
into this band, Spanish rock band.
that's nice. I thought that was a really nice touch because, like,
Yeah,
Veronica could have been me. I was a kid with like the headphones on at night,
sure, sure.
rocking out all the time.
Hmm. Me too.
I really like identified with that part of it. We see Veronica dropping off little Antonito at preschool. It's so cute.
He is the cutest kid in the history of the world.
I wondered where he was now, and I looked it up, and he's been active like at least up through 2020 in like a Spanish sci-fi TV series.
Okay.
So good for
Well,
him.
good for
I
him.
think
Yeah.
one of the little sisters went on to have a career. The other one, it didn't seem like she ever acted again. And
Hmm.
then Veronica herself, Sandra Escacena, I don't think she's ever done another thing, although she went to like performing arts high school and did
Interesting.
theater stuff.
Huh.
I don't think she's ever had another movie.
That's sad.
I know, I thought she
Maybe
was
that'll
really good.
change. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Anyway,
Anyway, back to the movie.
back to Antoinito.
Back to the movie world. We see Veronica in class, and this thing is happening that always happens in horror movies, probably other movies too. I just don't watch those, where like the class lesson is about exactly the thing that the movie is about, or something
Yes.
of pivotal importance to the movie.
Hmm.
Which is for the best because I don't want to listen to some like random social studies lecture.
Sure, sure.
In this case, the lesson is on the solar eclipse that's about to happen, and the teacher, Sister Nun, is saying the Earth rotates on its axis. At the same time, it revolves around the sun, and the moon revolves around the Earth. And all the girls in the class are busy writing. What are they writing, Bill? That the moon goes around the Earth? I certainly hope for Spain and for the whole world that this is common knowledge by high school and that these girls are just like writing down angsty Spanish rock song lyrics or
I hope so. Or
like
like
making those
passing notes.
long illustrated notes to their friends like
Yes.
normal kids did in that generation.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, while Sister is lecturing, we see Veronica has a small paper note. Speaking of notes, and the note says, "Do you have it?" Meanwhile, the sister teacher Dunn is talking about superstitions regarding this eclipse. I thought this was a very interesting foray away from the main topic,
Yes, I agree.
the science class. But it's really on point when later you learn what the note conversation was about. In fact, right at that moment, there is a very spooky looking slide in the lecture show and some spooky music in the score accompanying it. And on the slide, there are several dark humanoid figures with horns. And we get a couple shots of that. They keep getting like more zoomed in. So we know it's important. The sister tells the class that some civilizations thought that during a solar eclipse, darkness ruled over the light during the literal darkness.
Right.
And some thought a solar eclipse was a perfect time for a human sacrifice. I did not
Hmm.
fact check that, but I'm like, probably not. I think the perfect time for a human sacrifice is like whenever you want to get rid of somebody. I think that's how it's always been.
Sure. Well, I was gonna say the purge would probably be the perfect time for human sacrifice. You
Good,
get off
good
scot-free.
call. Nice reference. I haven't seen any of those.
Oh man, we're putting those on next. Just kidding.
Oh no. Okay.
We'll get there. Well, did you notice that one of the slides showed like I think it may have been when you were talking about like those black
Oh,
characters and like one of
yeah.
them was shoving their hand down like a
Yeah.
baby's mouth?
So we start hearing the steady percussion sound. It's almost like a clock ticking at first, but it intensifies into like a bass drum sound as the cameras are like zooming in on Veronica. Then we get that way zoomed
Yeah.
in at the slide where it's zoomed into the altar where they have this like small, helpless, like,
So
you know,
sad.
outlined in black, white humanoid.
Hmm.
And one of the arms of the giant, like horned humanoid is going down his throat. which it reminds me a lot of the last movie we covered, Ouija Origin of Evil.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
right.
also it has a scene where the demon enters the child through the mouth. So this is a
Yes.
thing.
Hmm.
They do in a lot of movies. Veronica looks
Right.
pretty unnerved. She looks at the next slide of a violent human sacrifice scene under an eclipse. The teacher's voice fades away and the scary music intensifies. Then jump scare, kinda. Someone from the hallway bangs on the interior windows of the classroom to indicate that it's time to go outside and view the eclipse. So much for this lecture, but hey, this is way better than that trope where like the bell rings right in the middle of the lecture. Like no
Right.
teacher in any movie or show is ever any good at planning or pacing
No,
lessons. Like
they're
that's
just
just not a
winging
thing.
it.
They always get interrupted by the bell. Like it sounds like only 5 minutes into the lecture, but anyway,
Did you notice that cool shot? I think it was here where she's Veronica standing between the projector and the screen, and you get like the white
yeah.
circle, kind of like the sun
It
projected on like her
it
chest or her
projects
heart.
the eclipse onto her, yeah, the chest of her white shirt, and then
Yeah,
they turn off the projector so it
yeah,
goes dark.
really cool stuff like that. I
Yeah.
really appreciate.
There's also a nice like staircase shot that shows you how tall the school is and
Oh
like several
yeah,
floors of uniformed girls. So it's a girls' school, they're all girls heading downstairs in their cute little uniforms.
really cool settings in this movie too. Like that stairwell is a bunch of like vertical wooden slats almost. I don't know. It's just so
Yes.
unique. There's so many unique buildings and like locations in this movie that I'm going to constantly be talking about because it's so interesting. And I think that's another reason why I like watching like a non-English or a non-American movie every once in a while because it like you get a whole different set of architecture and different things that are normal in those countries that we don't see as often. So it just makes
Yeah.
it a little more eerie and a little more kind of just out of
The
our zone.
apartment was a really nice, like
Oh, I
the
can't wait to
architecture of
talk
that and
about
how it
that.
wrapped around. Yeah. Anyway, really good location. Somebody told me that they found out which building in Madrid that this was filmed in, and they went and took a selfie.
Oh,
So
cool.
I guess that's something you can do.
Nice.
Um, so Veronica and Rosa sneak around in the empty school building, and then Rosa says, "Hey, we have to wait up for Diana or Diana." And Veronica's like, "The girl who got held back? Like that dummy? I thought it was just gonna be in between us two." And
Right.
Rosa's like, "Well, now it's in between us two and Diana." Anyway, everyone knows it works better with odd numbers. She says, "I don't like this Rosa character already, and I'm not wrong." So Diana shows up and she's kind of more like an airhead type character, I think.
Yes.
She has absolutely nailed the 1991 look with her hairsprayed bangs. Can I just call her bangs for the rest of this?
My sister had that look going on, I remember.
I am so glad this look hasn't made a comeback as far as I know.
It will.
Let it never. It's like a beehive, but I guess like those are back as well. So, cut to outside. One of the kids, the random kid, I think, is viewing the eclipse with 3D glasses, and the nun is like, "No, not with those." Which I appreciate considering like none of them is doing this safely.
Right.
So one of Veronica's siblings is looking around for her. The music is kind of tense, and then we cut to a girl descending into a bunker, or that's what it looks like.
Yes.
I think it's bangs. And then the other two climb down after that. They are equipped with flashlights as they go through the bunker, which really kind of grosses me out at first. I'm like, they're gonna, hang out down there. I think I knew what they were gonna do. It just looks like a gross place. Like I wouldn't want to sit down. It's exposed to
No.
the outside. It's got to be nasty. But as
Yeah, I
they move
agree.
through it, it becomes clear it's like a storage area or it's connected to a storage area,
Hmm.
like for the school. So it's like a basement, but you access it from outside. Is this a normal thing?
Not here that I'm aware of,
For
but
sure
maybe in
not.
Spain.
Yeah. It seems very not secure.
No.
Anyway, the girls choose a place to sit down. They pull out a Ouija board. It's not a Hasbro
No.
product. It comes from like a pack that had some books in it.
Kind of cool, actually. I like this whole
Yeah.
like game pack with like the occult magazines.
So I also just wonder, like, if the whole back on this topic, sorry, the whole school building was empty, why wouldn't they not just find a good classroom to sit
Yeah, well,
down in and hide
absolutely.
out?
That's
Or
absolutely what I would have
the
done.
like art room supply
Sure.
closet. There's always room to hide in there. We're
Anywhere but
giving
the
kids ideas.
bunker. Yeah.
And sometimes there's a kiln for the pottery, and hardly no one goes in there. So
Right.
that might be a good place too,
Or a
kids. Okay.
practice room in one of the music departments. Come on, there's so many places.
I think it's just down there to make it scarier, to be honest.
Of
Veronica
course.
has brought that photo of her dad.
Hmm.
Banks complains that she didn't bring anything from her dead boyfriend, so there's a reference to the true story, I guess.
Yes.
And then there's a shot of the whole schoolyard full of kids and nuns looking at the eclipse, which hasn't totally happened yet. And there's one weird detail. There's two people standing on top of a school building on the roof.
Yes.
One of them is a nun, at least. The other might be, or might be in a school uniform. Hard to tell. They both are standing there like with their arms stretched out. Did you
These
notice
shots were
this?
very, yeah, these shots were very creepy in general. Like the way they shot from like down below and they're all just standing very still and like the
Mm-hmm.
music was like very ominous.
Made it look almost culty,
Yes, very
even though
culty.
we
Like
know
they
it
all just
wasn't.
walked
Yeah.
up to the roof and yeah.
So I wondered what was happening there, but I never got the answer. We see a bunch of little girls also looking at the clips through their photo negatives, including Veronica's little sisters, who, may I just say, I think they're supposed to be twins. They don't look alike at all.
No,
They don't
not
look
at
like
all.
sisters.
I didn't get the twins thing, but they do look similar in age though, for sure.
Yeah. Back to the girls at the bunker basement. They are using a little glass, like a juice glass, kind of. That's what I think of it is,
Hmm.
instead of a planchette, which they don't have. So that's when I made the realization that this was not the Hasbro product. A little slow on that. Veronica seems like out of the group the most apprehensive about doing this at first. She's like the last one to put her finger on the glass.
Right.
And then there's another shot of the schoolyard, and we see the blind nun with
Oh
cloudy
yeah.
eyes looking up towards the eclipse. I'm like, you could still damage your eyes even if you're already blind. Why are you doing that? But anyway, the glass starts moving pretty aggressively on the board. And so, Rosa asks if it's Veronica's dad and if he wants to talk to Veronica. And then the glass spells out VEO, which is veo, I see in Spanish. And it's also the equivalent to I spy, like the kids game. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
Rosa and Banks take their hands off the glass and they like joke about that, make an I spy joke. And then the glass starts to move very, very fast under one of Veronica's fingers. So you can see it's like not possible for her to do that with one finger, I think.
Hmm.
One of the others asks her if she's the one moving the glass, and she says no. So the girls then ask the spirit, "Who are you?" And the glass begins to circle wildly on the sun image. There's an image of a stylized sun. What a coincidence, because it didn't know the eclipse happening. And then it instantly like goes right to the center of, where the sun is very centered inside the glass, and it's about the same size as the glass opening. It's almost like it was a magnet. That's how it seemed.
Hmm.
Then the glass instantly becomes hot and burns the girl's fingers. And we see from shots of the eclipse outside that it's getting very close to the total eclipse moment. And Veronica seems to be in kind of a trance. She keeps her finger on the glass. I guess it's not burning her. And then when the eclipse reaches its absolute darkest moment, the glass explodes, cuts Veronica's hand, and then we see blood dripping onto the board. Her friends are freaking out. I guess candles get knocked over. There's a fire. The girls like stomp it out or it goes out. And then the panic girls, they find a flashlight. And then they find Veronica unresponsive. But she is, I think Bangs goes for help. And then Rosa is trying to get Veronica to respond. And Veronica starts whispering. And so Rosa like tries to listen and then she looks really disturbed. But we don't know what she said yet. And then jump scare. Veronica bolts upright and does the wide open mouth thing again, bigger than it should be. Demonic
Yes.
screaming thing. It's me every time.
Yep.
I think that exact image is on the cover, the one that I
Yes.
saw at least. And that, folks, that is how you know you got a demon.
Yes. It's confirmed.
Cut to the school infirmary where a nurse is triaging Veronica and not being very nice. Have you noticed that? There's a
No.
lot of adults in this movie who are just not nice to kids.
Well, we've seen this in so many movies we've even covered where the nurse is the sister and they're just super just like condescending and very just like
Mhm.
not believing, not giving her a chance to really explain anything.
This one's like, are you paying attention?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is exactly how you help a child in distress,
Are you diabetic? Are
Uh,
you iron deficient? Did you eat meat? Have you had your
yeah,
period? Like just going down the
yeah.
list.
The nurse tells her that she fainted because she didn't know what happened and they couldn't get a hold of her mother. The nurse asks her some medical questions. she's kind of impatient, not really nice. And then I noticed, like you said, she asks her if she. By the way, it was in Spanish. I thought she was asking her if she was on her period, but she was asking her if she has her period.
Wait, you didn't have subtitles?
No.
Seriously?
Part of the time I turned it on because I wanted to see if it said what was in the whispers, but it didn't.
Wait, so you are going through this just listening to the Spanish?
Yeah, I guess I was.
Wow, that's impressive.
Castilian Spanish is very easy to understand.
Hmm. Not if you only know German. That's me.
The streaming service that I subscribe to watch this movie lets you speed up to I think 1.5 speed, which is not very
Okay.
fast, but like
No.
I could still understand them even when they were talking fast. So I'm like, good, it hasn't faded. It's so
Nice.
nice. Yeah.
Extra points.
At this viewing, I was aware of what people were saying about this movie having implied sexual abuse like in the past. So I
Hmm.
noticed she got really quiet when the nurse asked her if she menstruates. And I don't know if she was
Right.
just embarrassed by the question, but then we learned that Veronica's 15 years old.
Hmm.
And this was a long time ago, or supposed to be a long time ago. So I'm guessing like the shame about it was more common then, even
Sure.
though it still persists today. So then we see Veronica meeting her little sisters after school, and we learned that her friend Rosa just took off without her. I guess they normally meet up after school, or they had plans today to walk together. And one of the sisters notices, one of the little sisters, you have to differentiate because nuns are sisters too.
True.
One of the little sisters noticed that Veronica had cut her hand, and Veronica says not to tell mom, which I thought was a bit strange and like draconian. Like it's just a little cut. Why would you?
Yeah.
But it's a big deal to Veronica for some reason. And then one of the little sisters says, Sister Death is looking at you. And Veronica sees the nun at an upstairs window looking at her, but Sister Death is the blind nun. What on earth is she doing? How does
It's a
she
trailer scene.
look at Veronica? Is it? I didn't watch the trailer. That's cool though.
I don't know either, but it just seemed like a trailer scene.
I wrote in my notes, what in the Ouija is going on here? Cut to the girl's mom who's working in a cafe. Does she have two jobs? Because I
I
feel like
I
the
thought I only saw this one.
was like a cafe, but then later there's a mention of a bar, but it's not important.
I think it's in everything. Well, yeah, she does coffee, she does like
Yeah.
cake. Yeah, maybe
Could
they
be an all
serve
day
beer there
long.
too.
Yeah.
Could be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Veronica tries to talk to her mom. She doesn't even give Veronica like even 1 second to say anything. It's kind of weird. But clearly she's in the habit of Veronica just taking care of everything and not having to ask for much. So
Yeah.
she does give the girls some food to take home at the very least. At home, Veronica instructs the kids to prepare for dinner, and then to some spooky music, she takes the Ouija board out of her backpack, looks at it, and puts it back in. And then this is where the fun begins. She hides
Yes.
the backpack on the very top shelf. And then she turns around and leaves the room and closes the door. But she stops when she hears a loud thud. What do you think that was? Can you
Hmm.
guess? Any guys? No, no,
No.
you've already seen
No
it.
idea.
I had no idea either. Just kidding. Um, so she goes back in the room. The backpack is on the middle of the floor. I'm like, you motherfucker. So she picks up the bag again, starts to leave again. Again, it falls. So she's like, I give up. She puts it under the bed. And then she asks her big rainbow colored snake stuffy to keep an eye on it. This made
Oh,
me really sad because we're used to seeing her act so adult like at home,
yes.
at least. And even at school, she's not really childlike. But this is like the one moment where we see like she really is just a child and it's
Sure.
sad. So then the meatball scene. So Veronica and the kids sitting around the table eating dinner, but Veronica discovers she can't eat. She has a fork in her hand with a meatball on it, but her hand just keeps trembling like she's like frozen. The kids notice what's going on. They try to get her attention. Finally, she gets a meatball in there with so much effort, and then lots of red sauce starts coming out, like way more than she put in there. I didn't really know what was going on.
Scene was oddly unsettling. I don't know what it is about like
It was
mouth
gross.
stuff.
hmm
I don't
It,
know.
it's gross out horror. That's what it
Very
is.
gross. Yeah.
So, I mean, it didn't look like blood or anything. It looked like
No.
sauce, but just you put one meatball out and you get like all this sauce. How does that work? I don't know. But anyway, she's also like kind of in a trance. So when she
Yes.
breaks out of it, she spits everything out and she's like, "What happened?" And she doesn't remember anything. And then in the bathroom, she notices what I think is a handprint mark on her shoulder. At least it has like three like figure shaped slashes. Like
Yes.
it was hard to tell.
Hmm.
While she's in there, she hears one of her sisters taking a phone message. So she goes back out to the kitchen and they're just hanging up. And the girl that's hanging up is like, "I'll tell her." And it was Rosa who says she can't come over. So Veronica calls Rosa back real quick. And Rosa's mom answered, saying that Rosa just left the house with bangs and they're going to meet up with Veronica. Rosa, liar, liar, pants on fire.
Yeah.
Rosa should be the one that has the demon. She's like,
Right.
the dishonest kid who's doing things and not telling her mom. Like Veronica's just being a good kid. It's not fair.
But then Veronica swoops in and thinks really fast and covers
She
as the
sure
good friend she
does.
is.
What a nice friend. I
Yeah.
don't even remember having friends that nice.
She was really thinking on her toes there, I gotta say.
So Rosa's a really fair weather friend and seems to be dropping Veronica like a hot Pop Tart after
Yep.
that Ouija business. But we'll find out more about that later. In the next scene, Veronica is giving her little brother a bath and they are singing a commercial jingle for Centella, which I thought I was going to sing to you right now, but I've kind of lost track of the tune.
Oh no.
I've kind of forgotten. At the time, Centella was like a product that was basically like Pledge. I think it's made by the same company.
Yeah, I think it was Johnson and Johnson or something.
Yeah.
It said on there.
So Veronica and her little baby brother are singing the lyrics. And the lyrics say things like Centella, time for me, Centella, time to live, which is not the tune. But it's ironic considering Veronica has no time for herself, which to me
True.
is the true horror of this movie. I did
Good
look up the
catch.
commercial and watch it. And of course, it's all women singing about this cleaning product. And it
Yes.
shows how fast they can clean so that they can therefore have personal time for activities like jogging, biking, boating. And every activity they did, I just got angrier and angrier, like for poor Veronica. And
Oh,
then bath time is interrupted by a loud noise coming from another room. So back to that story. As Veronica investigates, she hears her rooster alarm clock going off. So she goes toward her room, and then the electronic Simon game on the floor starts beeping. We should make a list of how many horror movies have a Simon electronic game in it because I think I've seen it in this capacity before. But anyway,
it
yeah,
gets me every time. I don't know why. It's
it
very
does.
effective, I think.
The tones are not like they're not like what you may call it. They don't go in succession. They like jump around, you know?
Right, right.
They're not
Hmm.
adjacent pitches.
Sure.
So as a kid, I was like, it never worked how I expected, so I didn't like to play with them.
Oh,
But I was really good at it though. I could go for a long time. The memory game, because I remember which pitch was which color. That's the trick. So Veronica investigates. The Simon game starts beeping. It's different color lights start flashing. And then the room light, like I think it was off, it turns on, starts flickering, which is all like pretty freaky. But we don't have time to enjoy it because then Antonito starts screaming from the bathtub. The door to Veronica's room like closes very suddenly. She can't get out for a few moments. So it's like a big panic. And then the brother continues screaming. She finally gets out. He has burns from scalding hot water that somehow
oh,
turned on while she was gone. So later, Veronica's putting her brother to bed and she apologizes for putting the water on too hot. And he says, "It wasn't you." She's like,
yeah.
"What did you
That was
say?"
creepy.
And he says, "It wasn't you." And then he like went to sleep.
Oh,
So I really like that little kid.
and there's so many cute scenes. Like I don't know if I think it's here where she's like drawing letters on his back and he has to guess what they are.
Oh,
Like there's so
it
many
was right before
cute
that.
scenes. Oh my God.
I think she was making animal shapes and he had to
Oh,
guess
maybe
what
that's what it
animal.
was.
Yeah.
There's so many scenes amongst all of these four kids. Like there's so many of those scenes where they're playing and it's so genuine and it's like just
Yeah.
so cute. That's what I love. One of the things I love about this movie throughout.
Me too. I think you described something in words that I didn't quite have put together, but that's it. About the like the dynamics of the kids and
Yeah.
the
Well, because like last
authenticity.
movie we just watched, that was one of my biggest complaints is they
Right?
didn't I didn't get them as like sisters, but this I totally get.
And now comparing those two movies, I totally understand what you meant.
Yeah, and like even from like the get-go in this, like when Antonito like he's like I wet the bed, and she's like, "Oh, it's okay." Like, she's like very motherly and then like the other two are playing with like walkie-talkies and it's so cute and like you just get the dynamic.
I didn't put that into my plot summary because I didn't want to embarrass him. Thought it might
Who?
be
Oh,
embarrassing.
oh, oh, the bedwetting. Yes. Sorry, we'll edit
Yeah,
that out on behalf of
it's okay. Yeah,
Antonito.
poor little guy.
Aw.
Oh, this is spooky. So she's doing the dishes because, of course, she's doing the fucking dishes. And
Like she
then
does everything.
she notices a glass that looks really similar to the one that they used on the Ouija board. And she kind of like reaches slowly for it. And then as soon as her finger touches it, the TV turns on in the living room and it's playing that commercial.
Yes, it is.
She goes over and turns it off, and then she hears some strange noises coming from like near her feet, the walkie-talkies that her little sisters were playing on earlier. As she bends over to pick it up, we can just barely see there's a humanoid figure reflected in the TV screen that's off. It's
This
really
got me.
easy to miss, but the music also clues us in that it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I was gonna ask you if you noticed, but clearly you
Definitely
you
noticed
did.
it,
Yeah.
yes.
This is something that I might not even notice on the first watch, I think. It was very subtle. So that was
I think the
nice.
music helps. When I get musical cues, I can kind of read what's going to happen.
Yeah, the music was very on the nose. So there
Yes.
is that. Yeah. She picks up the walkie-talkie and listens. It's mostly static, but there's also a voice. This is where I turned on the subtitles. Because I wrote too softly for subtitles, I guess.
Yeah.
And then the voice stops abruptly and the static. So she goes to bed, goes to grab something off the nightstand. I think it's the Walkman. And then she
Hmm.
puts it back. She's thought of something. So she gets back out of bed. She gets the backpack out from under the bed. You remember the backpack, right?
Yep.
You'll never forget the backpack. Uh, it
Never.
has the Ouija board in it. She puts the backpack in her wardrobe cabinet. I guess she doesn't want to sleep with it under the bed. But also it sets up this nice scene that happens next. So yeah, she puts it in there, closes the wardrobe cabinet door. I think it's like one of those rooms where you don't have a closet, so that's the closet there, the wardrobe.
Sure.
And she turns out the light, puts on her Walkman, and I always like these scenes where
Yes.
she's listening to her rock and roll. She has a flashlight and she turns it on, and then we see that she has these glow in the dark star and planet stickers that I also had as a kid.
So did I. I assume
I think
everybody
everyone
had
did.
these, and
Yeah.
they'd stay on for like a year, and then they'd all fall down because the little paste on the back would.
I think mine stayed on. I don't know what my
Oh,
parents did. They probably went extra on it.
yeah, mine
Mine
didn't.
stayed on until I was a teenager.
Those were so cool. I love these scenes as well. This happens a few times in the movie, and it's just like I don't know. I feel like it's
Yes,
her like release or something at like the end of a day. Like that's her
it
time for
is.
herself.
But at the same time, so she's shining the flashlight up there, and like it's almost a dream sequency feeling, like she's
Hmm.
maybe going to sleep while this is happening. And then at some point, I think it's not really her shining the flashlight on the ceiling, it's just the movie being cool. The flashlight focuses in on like this crescent. It's like really a crescent moon, right? But
Yeah.
now with the flashlight on it, it becomes very reminiscent of the eclipse that just happened. And as the perfectly timed singer of Spanish rock that she's listening to counts down, the light goes dark. And then the next thing we see is she's startled awake, and it's like a completely different shot. So it is a nice like nodding off to sleep scene with a little bit of spookiness.
Yes, I appreciated it.
So she sits up very slowly and cautiously to investigate. She takes off her headphones. I don't know if I would go to bed with headphones on if I was being followed around by a demon. Would you? I think I'd want to be like,
Present.
yeah, but maybe that's the only way she can sleep.
Yeah.
There's a very spooky shot of her actually where it's dark. We see the profile of her sitting up and she's facing like the to the right side of the screen, toward the foot of the bed. And the camera pans just a little to the left so that we expect very much that something will appear in that dark spot on the wall. That's how well we're trained by these movie
Yes.
makers. And then we hear the cabinet door open, and for some reason that reflects light onto the dark wall. And then we see the shot from the other side, and there's a full length mirror. So that's what was doing the reflecting. So now Veronica is looking at her reflection and she hears someone whisper, Veronica very bravely. She's like so brave throughout this whole fucking movie. I'm just like, I would not be doing that. Nope. She very bravely gets up with the flashlight, which is really not doing very much good at this point in the dark.
No.
And she opens the door of the wardrobe, and oh my God, it's the two little sisters and the brother, or just the sisters?
I thought it was just the sisters.
Okay. Yeah. But anyway, they look terrified. Then we hear the whisper, Veronica, like pretty loud. And it's clearly a deep sounding adult voice. And the wardrobe door slams shut with the little kids still in there. And so she shines the flashlight towards the sound. Is this the scene? As it continues, it gets louder and louder. Veronica, Veronica. It just keeps repeating over and over. And then the flashlight lands on the dimly lit up face of a man. And he starts walking toward her. And then she's like, Papa. And then as she said that, she's suddenly pulled down on her bed by like these demonic arms that are reaching out and pulling her and restraining her. She screams. We've gone full demon here. And we still hear Veronica, Veronica, Veronica. The figure of her father that we see walking towards the bed, it decays. It turns all like ghoulish and he keeps walking toward her. There are demon hands on her head and face holding her mouth wide open. So it's kind of almost like that slide we saw. We don't totally get there though. The demonic figure like reaches toward her mouth, and then we cut to like this suddenly awakened Veronica. So let's go back and talk about what we just saw, because I read that there was a full frontal nudity scene of a man where you could see the thing.
Yep.
I'm just calling it the thing because it's funny. It's not that I'm afraid to say penis. Penis, penis, penis. So you see the thing. So that was like a content warning for the movie, especially since there were kids in the scene. But then I watched it on this new streaming service that I subscribe to that's all Spanish movies and didn't see it. So I think my cut was censored.
And this prompted you to ask for your money back, I believe, because you're like,
Absolutely.
I want
Give me my
more
$3.99. I want my $3.99.
Yeah. I definitely saw a thing on the version I watched on Netflix. So it's there. This scene is one of the first things that, in my mind, was reminiscent of It Follows. There's about two or three things in this movie. Do you remember the old naked walking towards, like,
that's burned into my brain
feel
forever.
to me?
Yeah.
There's like two or three things. I'll mention the other ones later, that, but not in a bad way. Like, I think it's done very well. It's not like ripping off. It's just,
I wonder if there's anything that connects these filmmakers or anyone that could have.
I don't know. I couldn't find anything. So It Follows was 2014, so about 3 years before this. So it's definitely possible that,
Yeah.
But like I said, no problem with that. They did it really well. And
I have so much to say about It Follows, but we just can't get sidetracked.
I know. Anyway, sorry. But yes, there is a thing. There is a full frontal thing. Just want to confirm that if you want to see that, it is on the Netflix version. Do not subscribe to the Spanish movie.
Right. Spanish one got the decent version, I guess. No regrets. I don't think it would have really added to the scene to have a penis there.
Well, honestly, it's a little more off-putting because it's her. Yeah. I mean, it's
her dad, but it's not,
Yeah.
You saw a picture of her dad, when she communicated with it, I guess.
Right.
That's,
you know what? I just thought of something kind of related, kind of unrelated. So the dad, I'm just going to go out on a limb here. I think he was a chef. He was a pizza chef. Him and his wife, I bet you, owned that cafe. He passed away. Now she's working double because she needs to keep the family business alive.
You are so clever.
Okay. I don't know if that's right at all.
I wonder if like Spanish people watching this movie would just understand that somehow from like the language used about the cafe, because I'll when it happens, I'll mention it if I remember.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Sorry to go on a little sidetrack there.
No, it's so interesting. Okay. Veronica's awake, sitting up in bed, just as if it had been a nightmare, except she's coughing like something was in her mouth. Then she's startled by Antonito, who's in her room, and he laments that he peed the bed yet again. I wasn't going to say that, but now we know. Then she realizes it's 8:30. The alarm didn't wake her, and the very next shot of them is running to school. This is hilarious. I thought it was very funny. So Veronica's in class now. She looks at Rosa again. This time, Rosa won't even look back at her. So sad.
Oh, you know what I forgot to mention? The title card. This is actually Friday the 13th. Just
Oh,
a
it is.
little side note
Oh,
there. Yeah, just to throw that in there.
oh.
Not sure if it matters in the plot, but I always like a good Friday the 13th.
This is kind of interesting. So, the teacher sister nun is explaining a spooky Spanish story that I looked up. And the title of that story translates to Spirit Mountain. And in case you want to look it up, the author is Gustavo Adolfo Becker. Becker is not a very typical Spanish name. It's spelled B, E with an accent, Cuuer.
Hmm.
At one point, I decided never to spell anything in the podcast, but somehow I just forgot about that rule. The important thing is that everyone died, and the sister describes the lesson there as no one escapes the consequences of passing the limit that divides reality from fantasy. I think we can reinterpret this to refer to the divide between the living and the other side. Wouldn't you think, Bill?
Yeah, I agree. I didn't pick up on any of that. That's super interesting.
This was only on my last watch that I cared enough,
Yeah, sure.
to look it up. So it looks like Veronica is getting ready to pass Rosa a note, and then as she turns, she sees Rosa throw a note to Diana. Bangs. Bangs.
Thanks.
Damn it, Bangs.
Like Mags from the other episode. Bangs, Mags. I
Your
like this.
friend stealer.
Friend stealer,
Dang it.
bad seed.
Veronica changes her mind, and you can see on her face she feels very left out. She asks permission to go to the restroom, and she returns to the weird bunker basement storage place where the Ouija scene took place. And it was dark, but I think she finds the photo of her father that she had left behind there.
Mhm.
And then suddenly, Sister Death is there, which that's always scary when she appears.
Yes.
And this is a very interesting conversation. She describes to Veronica how you can go into a house where they have just made French toast, and it has a very particular smell, which she
Mhm.
describes in detail, like ingredient by ingredient. And then she says, I was a language and literature teacher. French toast is a metaphor. And I was like, oh my God, I love you. She asks to see what Veronica has in her hands and says that you don't always need eyes to see. Because Veronica's like, what? You're not going to be able to see it?
Right.
So that's a little bit tropey. Side note, like the blind seer
Yeah,
is an archetype like older than the Bible itself. I'm not sure how blind people actually feel about it, but it's very hard to get away from.
true.
It just pops up everywhere.
Is it at this part where she offers her a cigarette almost?
Yeah.
Or
Did
she
I
asks
leave
her
that
if she
out?
smokes in a way where it's like you think she's going to offer her a cigarette, and Vera's like, no. She's like, good, good.
And then she lights one up.
Yeah.
I think she just hangs out down there smoking all
Oh,
the
for
time.
sure. She's like the weirdo that just goes down there to smoke.
Anyway, yeah, Sister Death says it's a terrible thing what you girls did in this room. And Veronica said, I only wanted to talk to my dad. And Sister Death says, it's not who you want to talk to that matters. It's who you actually talk to. And Sister Death then says, you have siblings, right? She says, yes. Well, you're going to have to protect them. Protect them from what? Sister Death walks around and starts saying, don't move, don't move. But the way that she says it in Spanish implies that she's talking to a group of more than one person because that's how verbs work in
Mhm.
Spanish. So Veronica says, but I'm alone because she's confused. And Sister Death says, no, you're not. Something has attached itself to you and now it walks with you. And she does a little blessing. She blows some smoke on her face, which is like a
Right.
really old kind of blessing thing. Like I imagine like people saging. And then she also sniffs her, I guess, because she could smell the evil thing, because that was a metaphor, French toast.
Sure.
The smelling, I guess, was quite literal, not
Yeah.
figurative.
No.
Then the bell rings and Sister Death says recess is over. And I wonder if that's a metaphor too.
Everything's a
What do you think?
metaphor.
Hey,
I think I'm just going to go out on a limb and just say that this woman is just crazy.
I think you need to see the prequel then.
Oh,
Maybe.
okay. I'm going to get
It
more
gives
answers.
some more context. I mean,
Okay.
you're not exactly wrong.
They don't paint her in the best of light in this movie.
She got a story and it's not really her fault. So
Okay. Good.
Sister Death says some other scary things like run, maybe you'll get away. the next shot that we see is school is over. She's walking out and she sees Rosa and Bangs talking together. She approaches Rosa by herself, like as Bangs is walking off, and she asks if Rosa's mad at her. Rosa repeats the lie about having been busy with her mom yesterday, and Veronica tries to talk to her. She's so nice, like she doesn't say, I caught you in a lie.
Right.
She tries to tell her, I've been seeing things. Have you seen anything since the Ouija event? But once again, no time to answer Veronica's questions by anyone. And in that moment, Bangs arrives and it's like, Rosa, hurry up. Also, there's going to be a party because Rosa's parents aren't going to be home. And then Veronica's like, why didn't you tell me that? And
This is so shitty.
Bangs is like, we're telling you now. Anyway, you probably
I
can't
hate when people
come
do that.
because I know because
Oh,
you're gonna
come
have to
on.
be caring for your little brothers and sisters, and she didn't
Right.
really say that in a nice way either. So
No.
Rosa and Diana leave Veronica in the dust, but at some distance, I think Rose must feel a little bad because she's like,
Sure.
Veronica, come by if you can, you know.
Yeah.
So Veronica is next at home reading Encyclopedia of the Occult magazine. I really want to subscribe to that. Is that
This looks
real?
so cool. Yeah, I don't know why. It's like the layout and the pictures are just so like interesting.
They're like, here are the actual spells
Yes.
and like runes and things. I mean, it's not a fictional publication.
And it's got like a variety of different traditions and stuff. It's got like the Viking
Oh,
protection stuff in it,
yeah.
like just tons of different like different cultural stuff. I appreciated that. And these come with the game, or is this a separate like subscription that people?
I think that one came with the game.
Because she had a whole bunch of them, I think.
Yeah, there's a few different volumes.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe they just
The one that she needs right now is the one that I think got a little bit burned
okay.
because
Right.
she's still thinking about what Sister Death said about she has to protect her siblings. This
Right.
is really her main motivation. She never really contemplates like her self-preservation.
Right.
I mean,
Very
things scare
selfless.
her, but like her first reaction is always to go help the sibling, go investigate, make sure they're safe. I'll
Right.
point this out later when it happens more because it's kind of mind blowing. Anyway, she has like several issues with this magazine. I don't know if they all came in that package or what, but she finds something that she believes that she could help, that can help, and she begins to make a plan. That's about at the 50% mark in the movie. So there we kind of flip from a descent into darkness to an upturn. Like, yeah, we could get a plan together. We're gonna beat this
Sure.
thing, you know? So she draws a circular thing that she got out of the magazine full of like rune like characters. Not sure which one it was at this point, but she hangs it from the ceiling of the girls' bedroom. Okay, side note. Meanwhile, the girls are playing, and one of them is like narrating about the other one supposedly winning the Miss Madrid beauty
Oh, this
pageant.
was so cute.
Oh, okay. Not only was it cute, it was really funny because like it's
Yes.
really good writing or coaching. I don't know if they wrote the kids, you know,
Hmm.
I don't know what they do. But anyway, she describes Miss Madrid as being like a doctor, an astronaut, a firefighter, like five other
Hmm.
things. And also, she's a super intelligent robot. And at the end of all that, she says Miss Madrid is 25 years old and has seven children. So you know what? Since this is an episode about the patriarchy, I'm just going to point out that like this is kind of feminist humor, right? Like, in order
Yeah.
to be the perfect woman, especially at that moment in history, you had to be superhuman. You should have had an amazing career take off already,
Right.
but don't be older than 25. No one's going to want to marry you. Also,
Right.
don't wait too late to start a family. So you better be having those babies like while you're climbing the career ladder. Also, don't forget to clinch the fucking beauty pageant title. So let's hope you look like Barbie after all those kids.
Uh, I like that.
Just thought it was very funny.
Hmm.
At the moment, I guess it's the downstairs neighbor that arrives. She was so
Yes.
bossy, I thought she might be the landlady, and I'm still not sure she isn't, but we don't have really evidence of that. We just know that the little girls are afraid of her.
Yes.
She demands to know what the kids are doing. According to her, her light fixtures are dancing around like someone is jumping on the floor above. Veronica says, we're not doing anything. And the lady says, I also have a big dark spot on my ceiling right under your bedroom. How does she know where Veronica's bedroom is?
That's a good point.
She asks if they have moisture problems, and Veronica's like, I'll tell my mom. And the lady's kind of like, yeah, right, if you see her. So
Right.
yet another unhelpful adult in Veronica's life.
Right.
There's a cool shot after that. I told you I
Which
was going
one?
to mention this. As Veronica like returns from closing the door on the neighbor, she walks. There's kind of cool like music at the same time. I think she walks by a painting of two
Oh, yes.
dogs chasing a stag, and like
Yes.
the more you look at the painting, the darker it seems. And there was also like some dog barking faint
Hmm.
off of the distance at the same
Yes.
time. And right after that, there's another really cool shot that I had to replay several times, taken from, I guess, the atrium courtyard place of the apartment building, looking up at the sky. From that angle, the building forms like a cross shape against the sky,
Yes.
and the
That is one of the
shot
coolest shots.
rotates so that
I
the
love
cross
that.
turns
Is
upside
upside down.
down. Oh
Yes.
my God, watched it like
That
five
was really
times.
cool.
Yeah.
So that painting actually looks different later in the film. There is, I think the stag is removed or something. I have to look up what it
I think
was,
I
but
noticed that on a different viewing, but I didn't catch
yeah,
it this time.
the deer is gone basically. So it had been
Hmm.
consumed by the wolves at that point. So yeah, this is
So
later when
that's
they
the
show it.
reason we see it at that point, so that we'll know
Yes.
later. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you remember when that happens, please interject.
I will. Yes.
So right after that, we see Veronica on the balcony once again, like at the beginning of the movie, hanging out a blanket to dry, and she checks on the neighbor girl that she likes to watch, but not in a creepy way. The girl's doing her homework, and her dad is talking to her, and she looks happy,
Oh,
like just a normal kid having a normal life.
so sad. It's everything she
I
wants,
know.
right? I want a dad. I want a normal life.
She's so distracted by that the blanket falls off the balcony and she can't catch it in time. But she's so fucking responsible. She's gonna go get the keys, go downstairs, retrieve the blanket, even though it looks like it fell on the roof of another part of the building. I could be wrong about that. But on her way out, she hears something and she turns around. I guess it's the walkie-talkie again. And she picks it up and says something like, "Are y'all awake?" Like something scoldy. And then she hears the Simon toy, and it sounds like it's coming from nearby. It's not over the radio. She looks out the window, and I guess she can see her sister's window across the way.
This is the coolest thing.
Do you want to say anything about the layout of this apartment? Because I'm not sure that I grok it.
Well, if you remember the scene, you referenced that straight up shot. So it wraps around. So I'm assuming maybe you walk in. If you look at it as like a U, I think you walk in at like the bottom of the U. That's how you enter. And then it flags off into two corridors, kind of.
Oh,
So if there's a bedroom on the left side and the right side, you can probably see across, which I thought was like just a super interesting way to
that
shoot this.
makes so much more sense. I
And
mean, it
I'm
makes
not
some
sure
other
how
things make
common
sense
these
later.
are. If I'm not mistaken, I think this was set in like kind of a working class or kind of poorer area of Madrid. I don't know where I read that, but I think the actual like area. So these buildings might be kind of like low income housing, I'm guessing.
The apartment looks nice. I mean,
It looks
I
cool.
understand that their family is poor because of
Right.
circumstances, but
Sure.
like, I didn't see enough to form an opinion on like,
Well, they look very cold, the buildings, when you see them like some of the shots
mm,
later. They look very like small windows kind of and like just I don't know, very cold. So I don't know if that's the case. But yeah, this design of these flats are just so cool and it lends her so many cool shots throughout the movie.
yes, and so much like logistical delight,
Yes.
I will say, without spoiling anything. She hears the Simon toy, and so she looks at the window. She sees that their window is flashing red and blue, like the Simon toy, possibly. Makes sense because it's like two tones that she's hearing, and it's
Right.
two colors. So she says, "It's not funny. I can see a room from here." And the sister says, "Help us. You're the one who called us. Like, don't let it hurt us." And then jump scare, she sees the figure of a man walking over that side of the apartment. She turns to run toward the kid's room, yet another moment of bravery, and flips on the light. I don't have siblings, so I don't know how I would have reacted, but I feel like I would have been a coward.
I'm the youngest, so I think it would be my decision for my older brother and sister. I think I'd
Right.
be off the
You'd be
hook
like,
there.
y'all have to rescue me.
Yeah, pretty
That's how
much.
that works. Yeah. But she gets there and flips on the light and she sees the kids are all asleep in the bed. So who was it on the fucking walkie-talkie? That's what I want to know. Because that's some scary shit.
Yes.
So she turns off the light, and as she is leaving the room, we hear the Simon toy again, and the room flashes red and blue. So she whirls around and she sees the Simon toy going red, blue, red, blue. And when it's red, we see the shadow of a demonic figure moving on the wall, on the wallpaper or the paint. It's creeping all the way around the room. And when it reaches what I think is like an art easel, the art easel like bursts into flames. And then the Simon goes all red and makes that scary error buzzer sound. Oh my God, what fun. I enjoyed this scene so much.
I agree. Yes.
The demon is not done. Okay, he keeps going. Where he's going, he spreads the fire, and then he's grabbing Lucia by the neck. So at that moment, Veronica springs into action, and as she does, as she jumps toward her sister, the demon and the fire and the flashing lights all like instantly go away, and it's just Veronica in the dark choking the little girl who is screaming. Oh my God, how the oppressed becomes the oppressor. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure.
It was such good like cinematography. It's seamless how it happens. It goes from that wild scene to just Veronica in the dark. Like so nice.
Yeah. And it was like when the demon was like choking the kid, then like it like smoothly transitioned to her with
Yes.
her hands around the neck. It was like a very interesting shot.
You know, hurt people, Bill.
That's true. That is true. That's the takeaway from this episode.
So thank goodness for this little kid. The other sister interrupts pretty quickly, and Veronica realizes what has happened. And she's like, okay, get your mattresses. We're all going to sleep in the living room. I don't know what that's going to solve it, but at least they're not going to be alone, you know?
Strength in numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. In the next shot, they're all lying down in the living room with the TV on. Lucia asks why Veronica was choking her, and they're like lying next to each other, so it's quiet conversation. Veronica explains that she was protecting her from something evil from the other side, and they must have fallen asleep because, like, suddenly something startles Veronica awake, and she hears that man again calling her name. I would get tired of that. So, anyway, he's calling her name from the other room. She goes to investigate, hears some noises, and then she sees the figure walking behind the glass. So, can you explain to us now that you've explained the layout of the apartment? Like, where is this figure walking? Is he on one side of the U and she's on the other?
Yes, as I understand it. Anytime she's looking out a window and seeing him, he's in an opposite room of the unit on the
Okay.
other side, like the left or the
And
right side of the U.
the place where he's walking, it's one of those like window walls, but it's made out of cubes of glass and they're not exactly transparent. They're like foggy looking.
Is it like bathroom glass, like where you see in bathrooms a
Hmm.
lot? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a bathroom. I think it's like a little hallway or something.
That's
Maybe
what
it's,
makes
I
this
don't
thing
know.
so interesting. And I
Yeah,
wonder if a lot of this is like standard in like architecture in that area or something that we just
it
don't do
can't
here in
be. It's too
America.
wild. But
It
I
is
don't know.
wild.
I don't
I'm
know.
into it though.
I've seen a lot of Spanish TV shows and but they're all like a lot more recent.
Okay,
And there's one in which somebody's looking for an apartment and they're all just like ridiculously small. So I think that's commentary on like the
sure.
current economy.
Gotcha.
Anyway, yeah, this apartment confuses me. But well, all I know is she took off running toward the figure, follows him around, then she sees the figure at the front door. So the little girls are all awake now, and they're all hiding behind Veronica. Veronica's holding out the crucifix for protection, which is so great. And then the door opens and it's the mom.
Uh,
The mom is home. Everything's
Imagine that, the mom coming
okay.
home.
I wouldn't want to be that mom, but yeah. Except everything's not okay because just like all the other adults, mom is not that helpful. So they try to explain to the mom that they were being attacked by someone. So first she freaks out. She's like, who got into the house? And then they're like, well,
Right.
no one broke in. And she's like, well, Veronica, did someone get into the house or not? Which is it? Meanwhile, it doesn't even really let her explain. She's about to
No.
call the police, but the kids tell her it was a spirit. So she hangs up and she's mad at Veronica. She's like, Veronica, go to your room. Veronica then gets a scolding from her mom about not scaring her sisters. She does tell her mom off, and I'm like, yes,
Yes. Yeah, she
tell
gets a
her,
jab in.
but like in such a polite way. I mean,
Yeah.
not exactly polite, but she holds back some, you know? She's like, you don't even know what's going on in the house because you're never here.
What would you think as the mom if you walked in on this? Like red flags everywhere.
Would not leave my children alone until we
Yeah.
figured out what was going on.
Maybe this is a time to reconsider this arrangement where I
Yeah.
just leave my 15-year-old daughter with our three
Maybe we
kids.
can miss a couple months of rent while we figure this,
Yes.
you know?
Something like this, but she's just like scolds her basically and
Yeah.
just like, what are you doing? You're being a bad mom, Vero.
In fairness, like the mom is very tired. She works way
Sure.
too long. Veronica does say there is an evil spirit. It's trying to hurt us. And it's all because I called it with the Ouija board. And her mom's like, why are you meddling with this dark stuff? And she's like, I just wanted to talk to dad. And
Aw.
so the mom tells poor parentified Veronica that she needs to grow up. God damn it. I
How
was so
rich is
mad at
that?
that. Oh, I wanted to reach into the screen and like strangle the mom.
Ah, I know. I felt so conflicted because I really didn't like the mom threw up, and I'm trying to find reasons to like find humanity. And I guess she's in
I
a really tough position. I
I feel
get it.
bad for her on that human level, but she is the adult. She needs to figure out how to make this work.
Do they have no extended family at all in
It's
this
another
entire,
question. It was
like
never mentioned, right?
someone, like a brother, an aunt, and someone to like help out in
Veronica
some
never
way?
even has anyone to call, like except for the
No,
police at the very end.
which is insane.
Yeah. Anyway, so conversation with the mom. Mom tells her to grow up. Mom's too tired. We'll talk tomorrow. It's back to sleep with the flashlight on the ceiling and the Walkman.
Yep.
The next morning is Saturday, and the little girls wake Veronica by jumping on her and on the bed. And they're like, wake up, we're hungry, wake up, we're hungry. And then they start eating Veronica's arms.
Oh,
This is the cannibalism that we warned you
I
about.
like this scene.
Yeah. And they're very pleased about it. They're laughing. Can you
Yeah.
imagine with the sweet little girls like filming this scene? Oh my God.
Yes. Oh,
I imagine the director's like, we're gonna play a game today. You're gonna pretend to eat your sister, but it's all a big joke, even though she's gonna act upset.
I want to know what they used like for skin and stuff. It must have been like some sort of like delicious food or something. Like, because you have to use something that's like
I
edible.
know. Hopefully they're not being forced to eat something. They look too happy though. They're like
Yeah.
laughing like for real. It must have been really funny on set.
Yeah.
But anyway, then the little baby Antonito comes and starts choking Veronica. And then she
Oh,
screams. And I guess her mom is there suddenly, like looking over her
yeah.
head. And the mom says, I just need you to grow up. And then we see the shadow of the mom's arm over Veronica's body. And the shadow reaches the hoo ha area. And the hand squeezes into a fist. And then a huge blood stain appears on the sheet at the hoo ha level. I just want to point out that old horror movie, like orchestral score music, almost like Godzilla kind of music, is being used here to great effect. But the audio quality is like lowered. So it clearly sounds like an old movie.
Interesting.
I don't know how to talk about the musical scores, but the cues are like following what's happening
Uh-huh.
there in the scene. And the music indicates that very bad things are happening. It's a little bit comical, even though
Sure.
it's a serious kind of like scary dream. And then Veronica wakes up. So it was a dream. Is this where there's that really cool shot where like she's lying down, but then suddenly she's standing up?
Oh, I love that you noticed that. Yes, she
Yeah,
the
it's
camera
hard
does
to
a weird
describe.
thing. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think the camera kind of tilts, but she tilts with the camera and all of a sudden she's upright.
It's like it doesn't look like she travels enough like radial distance to be upright. It was a very neat trick.
Like it's one of those things didn't need to happen, didn't have a lot of significance, but man, did it look cool. I appreciate when
It
directors
did,
do
yeah.
that.
It kind of conveyed like a little bit of the madness that we're feeling
Sure.
by day three. This is day three, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. So she gets up, she starts to walk down the hall, and then she notices a spot of blood on her pajama pants. She has started menstruating, which is interesting for this movie because just a couple generations ago, menstruation was referred to as the curse.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, they wouldn't have talked to the menfolk about it.
That's true. I mean, she's going to be traumatized the rest of her life now every month because of this terrible dream that she had before this.
Uh-huh. Anyway, the next scene, she is scrubbing at her mattress to get the bloodstain out. She hears some weird rumbling. She's so responsible. I would not be scrubbing my
I
fucking
know.
mattress. I would be booking it out of the house.
Seriously.
She looks under the mattress for some reason and she finds these black splotches on it, like black mold, but kind of like a handprint. And I don't think they show us all of it at that moment.
Right.
She goes out to see what the siblings are up to, and she finds a little boy with a book. And the boy says that dad was just here reading to him, and he's coming back again tonight.
Oh, creepy.
And he's going to take Antonito to where he lives. So Veronica says, if he comes back, you cover your ears, do not listen to him. And he's like, okay,
Oh,
I know. He's really good at following instructions,
he is.
with one exception. We'll get there. She checks his bed too, and it has a black stain like the size and shape of his body on the bottom of the mattress. I don't really know what this means, but I find it very creepy.
Yes, I agree.
She checks the sisters' beds. They also have them. And so Veronica and the siblings book it out of the house at that point. They go pay the mom a visit at the cafe, and Veronica's basically like, I gotta leave the kids with you to do something. And she's like, hurry back. Don't make it a long time.
Don't make me do my mother job for too long here. Come
Don't
on.
make me parent. Parent is not a verb, it's a noun. So Veronica actually goes to the weird bunker basement storage area to find Sister Death. I guess she just does like hang out there all the time. She's so weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sister Death is like, yeah, I'd like to stop seeing those things too. That's why I burned out my own eyes. But then I learned you don't need eyes to see certain things. So Sister Death's best advice to Veronica is you need to use the Ouija board to bid the spirits farewell, and that properly closes the seance, I guess. And then you destroy the Ouija board, and that closes the portal to the other side.
Ah,
Then they hear someone coming. It's another nun who's like not happy. And she's like, Sister Death is in no condition to be having visitors or helping anybody, helping you or anyone else. Let's go, sister. So I feel bad for Sister Death and Veronica at that point.
right.
Like Sister Death does not seem to have a very much agency in her life.
It just seems like they're keeping her around till she dies, basically.
Exactly. I mean, they do that. Now they have like crises because they have so many elderly nuns and not enough young nuns.
Sure,
So
that makes sense.
they end up being neglected. Very sad.
Oh,
I think that was like Veronica's last real hope. But as she goes, Sister Death tells her the answer is in the books. So Veronica thinks the magazines, right? So she goes
sure.
and reads that half-burned magazine and learns you always have to close the Ouija session by saying goodbye. So they said that in that other movie too.
Yes.
So that's what she's going to do. She goes out and buys another copy of this package with a not burned version of the book, which comes with the Ouija board. And in the next scene, I think she's like sitting on a swing and there's a trash can that's very like in focus. And
Mhm.
we see the Ouija board like half stuck in the trash, but she's gonna throw it away.
Right.
She just needs
Yes.
the book, right? She reads some more, and then we see Veronica. It's kind of cool. Like we see her walking and running across the pages of the magazine.
This was so cool.
I really liked it.
Like, I feel like it would have been really cheesy. Like, if someone just told me about this, I'd be like, that sounds really cheesy. But it's
Yeah,
done really well, and it's shot from a lot of different perspectives, which is kind of interesting. I don't know. Like, it flowed really well with
it
the
gives me
tone of the
the
movie.
idea that she sat there and read, and then as she was, you know, going to her next destination, she was thinking all these things over.
Right.
So
Consumed by it.
exactly.
Mhm.
So she ends up at Rose's house, and if you remember, Rose's parents are gone and they're having a party.
With a band, with a live band, which I thought was like, wow, you
I
guys
didn't
are
notice
doing
that. I
it
just thought
up.
it was. Did you see instruments?
Oh yeah, there was a live band playing. I'm like, that is a bold move. Your parents are out of
Yeah.
town. You're gonna bring like a rock band in.
You're gonna get, some calls from the neighbors pretty soon.
Yeah, you gotta keep that on the down low.
I understand her like frame of mind, but she arrives and just like demands that Rosa help her out to do the Ouija. We've got to put it back the way that we did
Yep.
it wrong. We got to make it right, or however it's in English. She's like, we also need Diana Banks. So she literally runs through the party looking for Bangs. This is kind
Like
of
a
a fun
crazy
scene.
person.
She literally pulls Bangs away from the guy that she's making out with to try to talk
That's
to
a
her.
no-no.
That gets her kicked out of the party.
Well, she slaps someone, doesn't she?
Yeah.
She slaps
She
like one of the
slaps the guy
guys.
that's trying to tell her to knock it off.
Right.
So she's out kicked out front, and Rosa comes out to talk to her and says, she tells her, I know you don't remember, but the day everything happened, you whispered in my ear that you were going to die today, Saturday. And Rosa looks genuinely worried for a moment. But then a boy
Sure.
comes out and he's like, come on, Rosa, let's go back inside. And she lets herself just be escorted away. So then Veronica, she has to go back to the cafe, but she begs her mom to close the bar. That's why I thought, is this a different job? But it's the same job. You're right.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
food place, and now she
Yeah.
does all the work. So close the bar, please, and please come home because the evil spirit doesn't show up when you're home. But the mom's like, can't, sorry. So Veronica takes the kids, it goes home, and she finds the Ouija board is ripped in half. That didn't happen before, right?
The original one broke in half when they used it, like at the end of
Oh,
their
okay.
original.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed that detail. So it's still broken in half.
Yep.
So that's not important. She tells the kids that they're going to play a game, and she gives Antonito the open occult magazine with the rune circle in it. It's the Viking seal of protection, I think. And she says, I need you to take your colors and copy this on all the walls. He's like, awesome. But for some reason, he turns the page, and on the next page, there's a symbol for like summoning. Great. So much for protection, right?
Yeah.
So at that moment, the crucifix falls off the wall. In case you were wondering, that's when it
Bum,
happens.
bum, bum.
It's thundering outside. So perfect for a seance.
Yes.
They light some candles and they start this Ouija business. Something is blowing at the candles. It doesn't blow them out, but they see. And a door opens by itself. And they try like using the Ouija board to order the demon to get out and leave them alone. Through the Ouija, the spirit keeps telling them no. Veronica has read in the book that they need to close with a mantra or a song of some kind in order to properly bid the spirit farewell. And the only song they know that they all know and know the words of is the Centella commercial jingle. So they start singing that over and over, and it's kind of hilarious. Well
It
done,
is.
filmmakers.
Right.
Even though these kids are distressed and they're like, she's like, no, don't stop singing.
It's
As
such
they're
an
like,
upbeat song.
it really is positive message,
Yes.
There starts to be a lot of noise while they're doing that. And while they're doing that, the camera does like a continuous circular shot of the room. It's kind of cool. There's like scraping, bumping, like doors open and close. You can hear the Simon game sometimes. There's like rattling, thudding, banging. Meanwhile, camera keeps going around, so we see all the kids still there trying to sing the song. Finally, the candles blow out and the Ouija board rips back in half. I guess she had kind of like repaired it. And the
Right.
glass that they were using instead of the planchette rolls away and around the corner.
This is such a cool shot. I like this.
Yeah.
Very suspenseful.
You know what it is? Like she follows it down the hall, and you realize as they're going down the hall, this is the same or very similar shot with the police at the beginning of the movie. Same hallway, same room.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So the glass has reached her room and is bumping against the door over and over, which sounds silly now that I say it, but this is a really spooky like moment in the movie.
Yes, I agree.
And Veronica is terrified, but like the brave person she is, she approaches the door and opens it, and then we hear that really scary kind of like demonic laughter. It doesn't sound like human laughter at all. It's just like so as she approaches the underside of the mattress, a demon hand like reaches out from the mattress and pulls her toward the mattress. She escapes, but now the actual demon is chasing her. She runs back and she shuts the door on it, I think, so it can't get to where she is with the kids. That's when she makes the call to emergency services that we heard at the very beginning. And then, like, one of the scariest, sad things is that we see the demon hand grab Antonito and takes him away.
Oh,
No. And then, of course, Veronica goes after, but she falls and hits her head, and everything goes silent for a moment. So I think she like may have lost consciousness for a second.
right.
And she picks herself up. She has a bloody face. She sees her brother sitting in the bathroom, so she grabs him and then goes and collects the girls. And she's like, "Let's all get out now." Meanwhile, all hell is literally like breaking loose in the apartment. Cut to the cafe. They're hearing sirens going that direction. There's some men with like red sashes. Are they police officers without their jackets, or are they volunteers, or
Where were they, outside?
sitting inside the cafe? But they get up when they hear the sirens.
Oh, they must be then. I didn't catch that.
The mom hears the sirens and she knows.
Yeah.
Suddenly, like the pieces have fit together for her. So Veronica finally gets outside with the girls and she realizes her arms are empty. It was a trick. She was never carrying her brother.
Yeah.
Ah, those demon tricksters. So she runs back inside, of course. Once again, she's so fucking brave. The mom is hurrying home. We're getting close to the time that the police arrived in the original in medias res scene from the beginning. The mom finds the two sisters in the courtyard. That's like reunion that we heard. And she sobs and she asks like where the other two are. Veronica finds the little boy and the demon in the bathroom. Is kind of a scary scene where like you see the little boy's head and then he gets yanked under in the
Yeah.
bathtub. And she tries to intervene, but she's thrown against a mirror and totally disoriented. So she picks up a shard of the broken glass, I guess to try to use as a weapon. And she goes off in search of her brother. There's a scary shot of her going down the hallway with the demon behind her. And normally, like, I don't like to see the whole demon thing, but I think they did it well and it was dark enough that it was actually scary.
I agree.
And it lasted like several seconds. And I'm just like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? And then she finds Santonito in the wardrobe cabinet thing. He's covering his ears and he's saying her
Aw.
name over and over, not acknowledging that she's standing right there. And she has now a montage of some different memories, including the time that she came to and was choking her sister, including the time that she told Antonito, if he comes back, cover your ears and call my name really loud.
I think the scene in the bathtub too, right? With Antonito earlier with the
Oh yeah,
hot
she
water.
remembers the bathtub. Like, did I
Yeah.
really? Was I responsible for the hot
Yeah, she
water?
has that realization.
Yeah, yeah. So she realizes at that moment that she is the monster now. And in case we don't realize that's what she's realizing, she looks into the mirror and sees the demon and she accepts it and says, it's me. It's me. And then she tries to cut her own throat. Of course, the demon doesn't allow that. She gets thrown back at a really weird angle. So we then see, she's like bending backwards, looking up, and we see the demon shadow above her. And the demon starts to go into her through the mouth,
Hmm.
just as was foretold in
Yes.
the what's that called? The projector
Yeah.
in the
In
science
science
class.
class.
Science class just
Yep.
3 days ago. Anyway, at that exact moment, the detective opens the door, but he can't see the demon. So he just sees Veronica doing like this half backbend and convulsing. She then falls to the floor, and the detective finds the little boy in the wardrobe. They bring Veronica out. She's intubated, but it's too late. I think it's later one cop tells the detective that she died.
Yes.
So the detective tries to sweep the house for all the clues. He picks up a picture of Veronica. It cuts his hand, I think, right? And then
Yep.
it like falls, but it's like a magnet. It's like the house like sucks it back to the floor.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cool effect. And then a black stain like spreads across her face. Cut to the detective at the old typewriter, and he begins typing the report. At the same time as he's typing, we see these same like typey looking title cards about how this was a true story. And you gave a bunch of those details already, so I'm not going to say what they said. Not sure how much of that is true, like we said.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I believe that she played a Ouija board and she died. That's not
Sure.
disputed,
Those
but
are the facts.
yeah. They also show some like snapshots of different spots around the house with the lights turned on now. Different little piles of things with like numbered those evidence markers.
Sure.
And that's the end. And we Spanish rock our way through the credits. What did you
Spanish
think
rock.
about that last act, Bill?
It does exactly what it should do. It just ramps up. It gives us a really cool twist. And I like that it ends in a very dark way. I like movies that go there,
Fuck
with
yeah.
Veronica actually dying. I thought so she didn't actually slice her throat. I thought she had.
She
You had said
started
that
to.
oh, okay. That's not
The
what killed
demon
her
did
though.
not allow it. No.
Okay. I missed
Yeah.
maybe that part. I thought the ending was perfect. And honestly, the way that the movie starts, this is kind of the ending that it needs, So
Symmetrical.
it's
Yeah.
symmetrical. You can't really stray from what this ending ended up being. So I thought it was great. I think it, from a like building up standpoint, I think it did exactly what it needed to. How about you?
On a just like movie level, this movie has the proper ending for like the story that it tells, which is a
Hmm.
possession story, which, like it or not, involves someone dying. Someone has to die in a
Sure.
possession story, in a real one. Like in stories like The Exorcist, that person can be someone who makes a sacrifice on behalf of the possessed person, who's usually like a child or someone innocent, like
Right.
Father Karras, and then the possessed person is cured and can lead a normal life. But if that doesn't happen, like in other stories, which I won't spoil by title because they'd be spoiled, the possession is literally like a terminal condition. The possessed person dies no matter what interventions are made on their behalf. Veronica is a story in the latter tradition, although with some differences. It's even more tragic than most of these stories because she doesn't die in a bed in her house. She basically dies alone, intubated with strangers. And all throughout the tale, like no one was even willing to try to help her except for Sister Death. And Sister Death was not really competent to be a helper, as we find out. I mean, basically, she says, "Good luck with that. Here's some tips."
Sure.
Doesn't make a phone call to her mother. No one's looking out for these kids.
No.
Veronica doesn't even get an exorcist in the story. We don't even know if an exorcism would have been successful or not because no one believes her. No one believes anything that is happening to her. No one even tries to help her until it's beyond too late.
Even though she's like the most mature person in this movie as a 15-year-old.
And I think that's really what people are saying when they talk about the film as a metaphor for sexual
Hmm.
abuse, or any kind of abuse. I'm not going to argue that it is or it isn't a metaphor for whatever, but I think like the ending of her basically dying alone, despite all her like bravery throughout the entire movie and every action that she tried to take to protect her family. Like, I think this is the necessary ending, given what I
Sure.
believe the movie is saying about women and girls, especially being ignored, shortchanged by society, and it was carried out beautifully and horrifically. So, in my mind, it couldn't have ended any other way.
I would have liked to have known just a brief bit about how her father died, like, or when that happened, like a timeline. Like, did this just happen? And how long she's had to be the caretaker for this entire family. Like,
I
has she
also wanted to
had
know that.
any kind of childhood? I mean, I guess the kids are kind of young, so at some point she was the only child. Like, did her dad just die and they're trying to figure out, is this like a transition thing where her mom's like, I don't know, for a little bit of time, I just need you to be the parent here? Or has this been going on for like years?
Yeah, the only evidence that I picked up on that question, which I also wondered, was that Antonito cannot be like more than 3 years old, would you say? Or
Right.
four, maybe, like at the edge
Yeah, I
of
think he
three
was
and
in
four.
like he was in like kindergarten at most, maybe preschool, because I think
I
she
think it was
drops him off.
preschool. He
Yeah,
didn't even know his
preschool then.
letters.
Yeah.
So the dad had to have been around at least a few years ago, but also Antonito remembers dad because he's like, Dad
Right.
showed up to read me a book. So I
So
don't
like
think it was
recent.
like more than a year ago. I don't
Yeah.
think, yeah,
Well, if that's the case, I would cut the mom a little more slack. If like this was
sure.
just like a new thing and they're just trying to find their footing after this, whatever event. Do we get to rate this thing now?
Do you want me to go first?
I want you to go first.
I might
Yes.
say some more stuff about patriarchy, but this is Patriarchy, the party game, part one.
Yes.
So it's only appropriate. So now that we've arrived at this segment, I can finally confess what you may have suspected, that Veronica is one of my favorite possession movies of all times.
Wow.
So I'm really a sucker for the cinematographic things that they did, which is not a word I can say, but I can still appreciate it. Okay. It's a really nice looking movie. Thought they did a good job of capturing like the early 90s in the aesthetic, in the music, and I really like all the different cool shots that they did that had symbolism. And I talked about a couple. They did this just right, in my opinion, for a genre flick. So they don't like hammer it into like they're like you're ignorant, like they do in some movies. But they're not too art housey about it either. I mean, they don't really hide the ball. It's not hard to notice. It's easy enough to catch most of it the first watch. I thought all the kids were amazing in it, and I just really enjoyed it as a story. Like as a, it's kind of like saying to my inner child, like, sit down, I'm going to tell you a story. And it's a good dark story.
Agreed.
I really had a fun time every time I watched it in the escalating sequence of like demonic events that led up to the finale. Like they were well ordered from the very first like backpack falling off to like the whole finale. The events built on earlier moments. They kept referring to things like that were constant, and they were just really so much fun. I love like demons that mess with electronic toys and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we promised a patriarchy smashing episodes. Here's my moment for that. I feel like we need a little sidebar here about how this choice of movie actually fulfills that requirement. Of course, Veronica is a badass. And one of the reasons she had to die was I think she was too perfect. She wasn't really a flawed character with a
Right.
discovery arc. She was just someone whose life sucked because of circumstances and then she died.
Yeah.
The thing about this movie is that a really big theme, like arguably the biggest theme, I would say, is society ignoring the needs of women and girls for like most of human history, at least most of the history of civilization, since agriculture, let's say. I thought a lot about going into some detail on this topic. Then I realized that was just going to be too much because this is a podcast about movies. But I will say the struggle is still going on in major ways. But anyway, in this movie, as I've mentioned, Veronica is ignored by everyone at every turn. Everyone who's had an opportunity to help turns away
Yes.
or is turned away in the case of the nun, who's not responsible for herself, really.
Right.
Veronica's failed by everyone, and really sadly, she's failed over and over by women. If you think about it, all her teachers are women. Like all the little girls' teachers were women. The little tiny kids' teacher was a woman. Like, didn't any of these teachers hear or notice anything that could have helped? Couldn't have someone got through to the mother, like another adult?
That's a good point. Yeah.
So what does this mean in my like big analogy about society if we're not seeing the men doing the evil? I think it means that patriarchy is internalized, my sisters, and we need to stop turning it on one another. And then I think that the possession of Veronica by the demon was the illustration of this internalization. What was the question again?
Well
Oh yeah,
said.
how do I rate it? Yeah, I forgot about that. Sorry. This movie is pretty much perfection for me. Like patriarchy aside, judge me how you will. No doubt you will. No doubt this will come back to bite me somehow, but I'm giving this one a perfect score. 5 screams for me.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it had
Well,
to
that should
happen
be
at some
easy to do
point.
math with, right?
Depending on what I. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I gave it a 1. No, I'm just totally kidding. Uh,
I don't
total
believe you.
crap.
Too much feminism crap shoved in my
Yeah, what is
face.
this? Come on. Can we get some misogyny be our next category? Come on. Something in my wheelhouse.
Absolutely. It's the same
Just kidding.
topic.
That's true. So knowing that this was a Ouija board type movie, I was less than enthused going into it based on the last film that we watched. Not gonna lie.
Understandable.
However, this film was a very pleasant surprise, and the film delivered in just about every aspect I could have imagined. As we talked about, the performances from all 5 of the main characters were outstanding. I mean, I just got all the feels when like the scenes with the kids and Veronica, like just so authentic. Loved those. And then I liked like the working class setting mixed with like the It Follows like synth score, like that just
Mhm.
slowly built because it didn't start from the beginning. It was like maybe a quarter or a third of the way through the film, you start hearing the synth score. And
Yeah.
this is another movie that if it was any other score, I don't think it would have been as effective. There's just something cold and kind of eerie about like a synthy type score, which I really loved. So that was my
Yeah.
other kind of It Follows analogy, a very similar feel to that, very
Nice.
cold. My third one for the It Follows thing is also you get the kids trying to figure out how to solve the thing at the end. And it kind of seems a little
Oh,
silly. They just have like this inherent, like, I think we need to do this, this, and this. And just like It Follows, the final scene where you're just like, where did you come up with this? But
this is never gonna
they're
work.
very
Yeah.
confident in that.
Hmm.
I just like that. It's almost like a Scooby Doo episode where like they all get together and
Yeah.
they formulate a plan. So I like that. Then, as you talked about, the cinematography kept me engaged throughout. So many cool little camera tricks that weren't overly flashy, but super interesting somehow.
Yeah. Nothing ponderous, right? Like
No,
it
not at
kept
all.
going, kept moving.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, I like that they didn't shy away from a fairly dark ending, which I always appreciate because I think it takes guts to not come out with some sort of light at the end of one of these movies. And this one was pretty grim at the end, realistically.
Well said. And you know what? They get a lot of pressure, filmmakers from production companies and people who want to make the money because they think happy endings make more money. That's probably
Yes.
true. So I always love to see like the filmmakers push back on that.
Yeah. And this movie, I don't think ends. I don't think it lends itself to a sequel, which I also
Nope.
appreciate. I feel like this is a very, cut it, it's dead. It has a prequel, and then this movie. Good. Let it be. Great movie. So with all that being said, I gave this movie a solid 4 screams.
Oh, hey, better than I thought.
Well, now I'm starting to get to the point where I'm looking at how I rated some past movies. So I'm starting to like, incorporate that into my ratings, which may be good, may be bad. But um, yeah, I thought this movie was fantastic. There wasn't a single moment where I was like bored. And I also liked that they didn't go too much into the was her name Sister Death? Was that the blind
Yeah,
nun? Like they could have gone like way overboard with that character and had her explain way too much and had her be like a
exactly.
focal point of this movie. But no, keep it to the kids because the kids are what
Hmm.
make these movies so freaking good. So I appreciate that they didn't bog it down with way too much of that Sister Death stuff.
Me
So
too.
I don't know if I'll be watching the prequel, but maybe I'll give it
Meh,
a yeah.
meh.
Okay, just to watch this one as a standalone.
This one is outstanding. The prequel is just like, what would you expect from a Netflix possession movie in
Gotcha.
general? You know,
Yeah, I may skip that one.
very middling.
So, with that being said, in our next episode, we will continue fucking the patriarchy while still taking time to play
Wait
some
a minute,
games.
but not literally. Okay, thank you.
Hey, I said what I said. We'll be covering 2019's horror comedy, Ready or Not. And whether you're ready or not, I suggest you tune in. In the meantime, please follow our show on whatever podcast platform you prefer. Leave us a review and share it with your friends. Until next time, stay scary.
See ya.